Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you all the books that I got in the months of January, February, and March. So I have quite the stack of books next to me. I think I have 18 books that I bought in the months of January, February, and March. So if this video is not absolutely forever, let's just jump in. Oh, also I'm gonna do this in order, so it'll be January, February, and then March. So the first book that I bought was How the King of Elfhame Learned to Hate Stories by Holly Black. This is a collection of short stories, some set before the events of the Cruel Prince, some set a little bit after the events of the Cruel Prince, and like Queen of Nothing and everything. And it was just a really cute addition to the world. I'm really hoping that we get more like stuff like this. Also the art is like, there's like some really like full picture drawings, and then I love the like division pages. Let's see if I can find one. I love the division pages because there's like a golden like yellowy color with the book and like the branches. I don't know, it's just, I really like this book, and I think there's, yes, and it looks really pretty underneath the dust jacket. It just tells the story of Carden and how he is, like why he is the way he is, how he became that way, and it was just a really cute story. I ended up giving this 5 out of 5 stars. It was really cute, loved it. So many great quotes, a great installment to the series. That was actually the only book that I got in January. Yeah, it was the only book I got in January. So the next couple of books are all in February. So the first book that I bought was A Cuban Girl's Guide to Teen Tomorrow. I've talked about this book so much on my channel, and I think this is the last video that it's gonna be in. So yay for us. But I have already read this. I didn't like it as much as I wanted to. If you want more in-depth thoughts, go to my March wrap-up, which will be linked up above and down below. But this basically follows Lila, and Lila is a Cuban girl who's living in Miami. Her parents own a bakery, like it's a whole family business. And 3 months before this book starts, her grandmother dies unexpectedly. Her boyfriend breaks up with her unexpectedly, and her best friend unexpectedly tells her that she's actually moving to Africa for 2 years to go on some sort of mission to help over there, instead of staying in Miami with her and like supporting her as she tries to take over the bakery. So because of this, she becomes extremely depressed, and her family ends up sending her to England to go live with her mother's best friend / her aunt at their like bed and breakfast / inn, and she ends up helping there with baking. She ends up meeting a boy named Orion and all of his friends, and it's just kind of a cute contemporary romance travel sort of novel set in England. The overall concept of this I really liked. There was just little itty bitty pieces of it that I didn't entirely like, but like I said, more in-depth thoughts will be in my March wrap-up. The next book I got was Happily Ever Afters by Elise Bryant. This is basically a book about this writer. I think her name's Tessa. Yes. Her name's Tessa, and she never really sees herself as a black girl represented in novels and movies and things, except she does find herself represented in her own writing. And she ends up getting accepted to this writing program in this really prestigious art school, but when she goes to her first workshop, she realizes that her inspiration, her writing, her words, nothing is coming. So she likes romance novels, so in order to find inspiration for writing, she needs to like have some real life experience in romance. Yeah, that's kind of all I know. And I'm pretty sure it's like a really cute contemporary romance. Yes. Then the next book that I bought in February was Dearest Josephine by Caroline George. This is a like historical fiction / contemporary sort of novel. So it follows 2 different timelines, and it follows Josephine and I forget what his name is. Elias, and in 1812 Elias writes these love letters to this girl named Josephine, who doesn't actually exist in his time, but he just feels the need to write these. And I believe 200 years later, Josephine, our main character, ends up stumbling upon the love letters and realizes that they're written to her even though they've never met and they're 200 years apart. And it's kind of like a weird thing of like her reading the love letters, and basically like she's reading these love letters and she's falling in love with a guy that isn't here anymore, like is dead. and it's not like a ghost thing. So I just think it's a really interesting concept for a story. I really loved this cover. I ended up wanting trying to get an arc of it on NetGalley, which was declined, but is what it is. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting story. I'm interested to see how this is going to play out in the sense of like, it's a love story, but they're 200 years apart kind of a thing. And like, it goes between timelines. So it goes when she's reading them and then when Elias is writing them. So I'm interested to see how this is like end up like gonna finish, if that makes sense. Like how it's all gonna like wrap up and if it's gonna be a happy ending or just kind of like a satisfying, like, that was a really cool, cute story, but not really like a, oh cute, the two main characters get together kind of a story. So yeah, I'm really interested to see how that's gonna go. Okay, so then the next book is Crown of Bones by A.K. Wilder. This is a book that I don't really know a lot about. I know that our main character is a bard. No, a scribe, not a bard. She's a scribe, and she, I think it's a she, I'm not quite sure. Their name is Ash. That really could go either way. They are a scribe, and they basically tag along with all of the adventurers, and they write down what their stories are. But we have like 4 other main characters, and their world is on the brink of the next great dying, and I'm pretty sure they're gonna try and like stop that from happening. And Ash goes along to record the events, and the last tagline of the synopsis, or like what I believe is a synopsis, says, "My name is Ash, a lowly scribe meant to observe and record, and yet I think I'm destined to surprise us all." I thought it was interesting. It also says, "For fans of epic fantasies and sweeping adventures, this ensemble cast will immerse you in a world of unique magic, breathtaking action, and unforgettable characters." That's really all I kind of needed to know. It seems like really cool, interesting fantasy novel. Okay, so the next book is Rhapsodic by Laura Teles, whatever her name is. This is the first book in the Burgener series. I ended up really liking the plot of this. I've said in my March wrap-up, which again I'll link above and down below, it was extremely problematic, and so I couldn't really give it anything higher than a 3. I said in my, like, that video that I gave it 3.5, but I realized it's like 3.5/4, like that's not a good, no. 3 is better of a rating because of the problematic elements. Overall, I liked the plot of this story. I liked the direction that it's going and like what's gonna unfold. But like I said, couldn't give it anything higher than a 3-star just because problematic elements. So this basically follows our main character Callie, and she is a siren, and one day she ends up having to make a deal with the Burgener, who is this magical fae king who grants favors to people and like will help them out of kind of like any kind of sticky situation, but at a cost. So for her, he gives her favors in the form of a bracelet that wraps around like her wrist and like her forearm, and each bead is a favor. So she has ended up collecting over 300 favors, and 7 years like later, after like since she's spoken to him, he comes back and he says he's ready to collect on those favors, and it's starts off with that. There's also another like subplot of like in his kingdom he needs her help because for a couple of years now women from his kingdom have been going missing, and then when they come back, like when they appear again, they are in glass coffins and they are clutching babies, and nobody knows what happens to them. They're like in this catatonic comatose state. Nobody knows what is happening to them. Nobody knows how these babies are here or why they're here. And the babies are honestly like creepy kids, which is also like a weird like thing. But anyway, that sort of the plot really intrigued me. Like I said, more thoughts in my wrap up. Okay, so the next book is Lore by Alexander Bracken. This, when I first heard about this book, it honestly did not intrigue me very much. But reviews started coming in, people were sort of liking it, and then I like reread the synopsis and I was like, it's okay, that's kind of cool. So basically this follows our main character. I'm not quite sure what her name is. Let me see if I can, oh no, I think her name is Lore. So basically in this world, the Greek gods are real, and every 7 years the Greek gods they become mortal, and I believe it's like for a week. Yeah, so it's basically in punishment for a past rebellion. So 9 of the Greek gods are forced to walk the earth as mortals. I think it's like for a week or something. And they're hunted down in this week, so whoever ends up killing them will take their place as that set god. But if nobody ends up killing them, then they go back and they're fine. This happens every 7 years, and it's like a competition to try and kill them, and that's kind of all I know. Yeah, all I know. Okay, and then the last book that I picked up in the month of February was A Dark and Hollow Star by Ashley Shuttleworth. This is an interesting book. So it is a sapphic romance, so there's a male and a female romance, and this has been pitched as a crossover between like Daughter of Smoke and Bone, The Cruel Prince, and City of Bones, because it's set in, I believe it's set in Toronto. It's set in like the modern world, but in the sense of like there's fae and like fairies in this world, and the 4 main characters are tasked with making sure that the human world doesn't find out about the fairy world and how prevalent they are in their society and stuff. So it looks interesting. This cover is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, like, come on, look at the really cool wings and like her outfit. It's just a really cool cover. Super interesting, and I'm really excited to read this. I'm hoping to read this month, but we'll see. I have a whole bunch of books on my TBR, and I genuinely have no clue if I'm gonna get to most of them, so we'll see. Okay, so now these are the books that I got in the month of March. So the first one is The Queen's Assassin by Melissa de la Cruz. This book came out last year, or like the year before, and I was just waiting for it to come out in paperback because I just didn't feel like buying the hardback version of it. I wasn't that interested in it to want a hardback version of it. But this is, I believe, basically about the Queen's Assassin. That's literally all I know about it. I know that when I like read the synopsis of this, I was extremely intrigued. I was very excited. I wanted to read it. Yada yada yada. So yeah. Then the next book that I got in the month of March was The Last Wish by Andrzej Sapkowski. This is the first, it's not the first book in the Witcher series, it's the first collection of short stories. This is what I believe they based the show The Witcher on, like the short stories in here. But I've heard that in order to like get into the Witcher series, you have to read the short stories first, because it takes place before the events of The Witcher, like of the first book. I think it's Blood of Elves is the first book. So that is why I have this one. If you don't know, this basically, like what The Witcher is, it basically revolves around this guy named Geralt of Rivia, and he is a Witcher, and the Witcher are a like genetically enhanced people who were like experimented upon, and yeah, they like were trained for like a really long time for this. They have this like elixir or like something that they drink that like makes them like really powerful, and their job is basically to go out and hunt monsters. But I wanted to get into the series, so I thought I would start with The Last Wish, was the first collection of short stories. There's actually 2 collections of short stories. I believe you have to read this one, then you read another collection of short stories, then you start the series. It's extremely confusing. Okay, so the next book is Cast in Firelight by Dana Swift. This is, it's a fantasy novel. It's, I believe, like an Indian-inspired fantasy novel. I think, I could be, don't quote me on that. Basically, these 2 main characters that are on the front here are in an arranged marriage. They don't particularly like each other. However, like they've never met, everything like that. They don't particularly want to marry each other. However, they realize one day that they need to team up because their 2 kingdoms are like going to be destroyed. So they end up teaming up. That's literally all I know. Oh, that's literally all I know about it. I'm pretty sure it's a fantasy novel. I know that there's magic in it somehow. There's, I don't know, something. But anyway, they end up having to work together. And I think there's a love story, so I think they end up falling in love, but along the way, oh, it's cracked. Oh well. But yeah, again, that's all I know about it. Okay, so then the next 3 books are graphic novels, which I'm just going to show you all at once because it's much easier. So I have Monstress Volume 1, The Awakening, and Monstress Volume 2, The Blood. And then I have Saga Volume 3. So I know they're not part of the same series, but I just wanted to show you them at the same time because it's much easier to just hold all 3 of them as opposed to, you know, whatever. So the Monstress series is like a fantasy, steampunky horror kind of a series, and it's basically, honestly, I really don't know how to describe these. I read the first one and I like really liked it, but I just couldn't, I don't understand how to describe what this is about, but just like, it's just a fantasy steampunk horror. There's a lot of body horror, so like kind of be aware when you go into that. There's a lot of body horror that is depicted, because obviously it's a comic, so it's like there's pictures of it. Just know that when you go into it. But yeah, it's just this fantasy, interesting sci-fi, or no, like comics. And then Saga, so I got Saga Volume 3. Saga is a sci-fi comic, and it follows Alana and Marco, and they are on like two opposite sides of this war that is like spanned a really long time. They end up falling in love and they have a child, and they're basically on the run because they've had a child and fallen in love, and they're on the opposite sides of the war. And it's told in a really interesting thing because it's told from the baby's perspective. So like it's almost like her recounting her life from like when she was born, and how like because of her things happened to her parents and like her family and stuff like that. So it's a really interesting read. It's a very graphic novel, or graphic comic, and yeah, that's like kind of where it starts, and it like goes off. So I just ended up picking up Volume 3 because it was the next one that I needed to read. So okay, so the next book that I have is The Beautiful by Renee Ahdieh. This is a like vampire sort of book. It's set in New Orleans, and Celine is our main character, and she moves there, and there is starting to be a series of murders, and she is like trying to uncover what it is. There's like an underground sort of thing. There's vampires in it, and yeah, it sounds really interesting. I've heard a lot of people absolutely love this book. So then the next book is Fortuna Sworn by K.J. Sutton. This is a new adult fantasy novel. That's kind of all I know about it. I know that our main character ends up having to go and try and find her brother who disappeared 2 years ago. And that's kind of it. I just know that it's a new adult fantasy novel, which after reading From Blood and Ash, I definitely wanted more of, just because I like that sort of setting, and like having the characters be just a little bit older, and as well as like the problems and like the situations that arise are a little bit more complex and adult. So yes, that's that. Then the second to last book that I have is A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair. This is a Hades and Persephone retelling, and I think that's all you really need to know, is that it's not a retelling, it's literally the stories of Hades and Persephone. Like their names are Persephone and Hades, and like she's the goddess of spring and he's the goddess of the dead and like all that, but it's just like their love story. So I'm not really sure if like this is like a spin on it. I don't think so, but it's just basically their love story. I've seen this all over Book Talk, and everybody really seems to like it, so I thought I'd give it a shot. And then the last book that I have in this book haul is A Strange Hymn by Laura Thalassa. This is the second book in the Rhapsodic trilogy, I believe it is. Like I said, I liked the, oh, this one's cracked too, oh god. So I liked the overall plot of the first book, and I'm interested to see like what the rest of it is going to be. I sort of like the romance, but like I said, I understand it's completely problematic, so do with that what you will, but I liked the plot enough that I want to continue and see what is like gonna happen. So yeah, I ended up getting this one. So those are all of the books that I got in the months of January, February, and March of 2021 so far. Hopefully I'll be able to do more book hauls because I'll be getting more books. So yay, book buying. Not so great for my wallet, but great for me to read. And yeah, so that's all for this video. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and support my channel. If you liked this video, please hit the subscribe button and follow me. And if you have read any of these books, tell me your thoughts down in the comments below. But other than that, I will see you in my next video. Bye!